Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Savage Panda podcast, where we talk about all things movies, manga, and anime. And today we are talking about The Flash, specifically a review of The Flash and the box office, and whether or not I think that this iteration of the character will continue going forward. So let's start off with my review of the new Flash movie. I have seen it, and I'm going to be grading it critically based on four categories: the plot, the pacing, the acting, and the visuals. Each of these categories will have 25 points to be awarded to it for a total of 100 points. And then personally, and then I'll be comparing it to the Rotten Tomatoes score, but then I'll also be creating an audience score for me personally, which will be based on two more categories, on fun and politics. These will both be subjective to me, and it will allow me the ability to either award 10 more points each or deduct up to 10 more points each. So let's get into my review of The Flash and let's see where we land. And so the plot of the film is very, straightforward, but not quite. You do have to have a bit of an understanding of multiverse theory, but thankfully this movie does a pretty good job of explaining it. The Flash essentially wishes that his father was not in jail, and he decides to go back in time and try to change things, and that leads to a whole bunch of things in the multiverse unwinding. And as you know from the trailers, he meets up with Michael Keaton's Batman and has to fight General Zod. I will not be going into spoilers in this particular review and podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can check out my spoiler review when I drop that in a day or two. Now let's get into the plot and the story of it. Is it a really good story? And I would say yes. Overall, it's a very compelling story. The Flash's reasoning for doing things is very understandable from an emotional point of view. And it's not too far reaching to say that, yes, this is technically stupid for him to do, but he's never done anything like it before. He has no point of reference. The multiverse is still all just theory. And so for him to go and try to make some alterations, it's probably not a big deal, but it turns out that it is. And the story really unfolds in a really nice way, and there's a lot of really positive surprises. I did not expect what they did with Supergirl, did not expect what they did with Batman or Zod, and I think this is a really... And there was a bit of a twist at the end as well that I saw coming about 5 minutes beforehand, but nevertheless, it's still a very good twist. And so in terms of plot, I would say this is a very robust plot, and it was well thought out and well executed, as we'll see. So I'm going to give this a 20 points out of 25 for the plot. And now pacing and editing. This is where I talk about, does the film drag or go too fast at any point of the film? A lot of movies, they could start to slow down and you find yourself sitting there waiting for them to pick it up and get to the parts that you want to get to. I never really felt like that with this movie. I felt the pacing was quite good and very on point for everything that they were trying to do. It maybe slows down a little bit, but even the slow parts are very fun and interesting, and it doesn't linger in any area for too long. I thought the editing was good, the cutting from scene to scene was good, and I felt like they spent the proper amount of time for each character and each sequence that they needed. So again, I'm going to give it a 20 out of 25. Well, let's make it a 22 out of 25. And so acting. Everybody in this movie is great for the material that they are given. I should have written writing for plot. Every character is given pretty decent material to work with, and so that's why I give it a 20 out of 25. I believe it could have been a bit better. Some of the dialogue could have been a little bit off. The second Barry in this movie is kind of annoying at times, and so I think they could have dialed it back a bit, although Ezra Miller's execution on those parts was very good, and you could definitely tell the difference between the two. And Michael Keaton is very good at Batman. Supergirl is very good. General Zod is very good. Everyone brings a pretty strong A game to this movie, so I'm just going to give It's no super real Oscar worthy performances, but I'm gonna give the acting a 22 out of 25. And in terms of the visuals, this is where we get into more of the negative parts of the movies. Either they ran out of time, which I don't understand how they could run out of time since this movie was pushed back by like 2 or 3 years. I think it was delayed by like 3 times. It took them like 10 years to finally get it made. And so I don't understand. I think a lot of the weird CGI was done on purpose, especially in a certain scene where Barry is, traversing time in the multiverse. I won't go into more of it than that. But it's a very visual sequence, and it looks like they've deliberately dumbed down parts of it to make it look a little bit more animated and make it a bit more stylistic. So technically it's not great CGI, but I believe it was done on purpose to give a particular tone and style. And so I don't mind that. But there is another sequence in the beginning of this movie that involves, some very small children in some dangerous situations. Obviously, you cannot, put children in dangerous situations to film a movie. And so they made them all CGI. And that's where you really get taken out of the movie and you're like, wow, that is some gnarly looking, like Twilight baby looking babies there. And so the CGI is very noticeable. And also in the end fight scene, there are a few moments where it is obviously a green screen. You're looking at a character and the background just does not fit at all. You just do not believe that they are actually there. The compositing, the distance from the things in the backgrounds, it's just not quite there. And so I'm gonna have to go pretty low on the visuals. It is, most of the film is up to comic book standards, but there were a couple shots that really should not have been in this movie at all. It should have been way better than that. So I'm actually gonna go a little bit harsh on the visuals and just get and only award a 10 out of 25. And so in total, where do we land in terms of the Rotten Tomatoes? 74. So I was higher. My award, so I'm going to give this movie higher than the critic rating. I'm surprised that so many critics dislike this movie. I do not believe that it deserves a 67%. I'd say that I would have anticipated something more in the mid 70s, which is why my review, about 74% in terms of awards for points. Bear in mind that Rotten Tomatoes is not a point system. It's just based on how many critics liked it or disliked it. But that's more or less my review. Now, let's get into the audience score, the extra part in terms of fun and politics. I can award up to 10 points or take away up to 10 points for this section. And so the fun aspect, I am going to give this movie an 8. I'm going to give it an 8 because I had a fantastic time watching this movie. I borderline almost cried at the end. There's some very emotional, heartfelt things. The story is very heartfelt, and you really do feel a lot of what Barry is going through. And so for that, I'm going to bump my score up to 82, very close to the audience score. And in terms of politics, there is no politics in this film. Nobody's preaching to you. Nobody's shoving anything down your throat. I did not feel like they were pushing any sort of agenda. There were no quippy one-liner comments that random characters just threw in order to make you feel a certain way. Nothing like that. And so I'm going to give this movie another 8 out of 10 for the politics, which will actually bump up my score to 90%. For me personally, this was a very, very good movie, very enjoyable and very fun. I highly recommend you go out and see it on a big screen, in spite of the fact that there are some CGI shots that just don't look good. There's a lot of other great things in this movie that really do look appealing, and so I would recommend you go and see The Flash. I would strongly recommend it, especially in a dry season where a lot of superhero movies have just not been good. Doctor Strange 2 was not good. Thor Love and Thunder, I did not like. I skipped out on Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I'm really, really glad that The Flash was actually a very enjoyable and fun movie. Now, let's get into some of the drama surrounding this film. For those of you who don't know, the lead actor of this movie has gotten themselves into a lot of trouble. I'm not going to go into full details because you can always look that up for yourself. But basically, there's a lot of different accusations and charges for a burglary, unoccupied dwelling, and things like that. And a lot of rowdy behavior, throwing chairs in karaoke bars, and some other very disturbing allegations, such as grooming and abduction and guns and unsafe environments around children. Some very, very disturbing things. We're not going to go into that today, but you can for yourself. And so, in terms of the box office, I was expecting that there would be a lot more, but we're going to get into that. And I think the drama surrounding Ezra Miller and The Flash is going to hurt this movie financially. I didn't think it would in the beginning, but I can totally understand why people just don't want to go and see a movie with this guy in it. And so, for me, I like to separate, the art from the artist. And also, when I go and see this movie, I'm not necessarily supporting Ezra Miller. I'm supporting the thousands of other people that contributed their time and hard work and effort to go and to create this film. As someone who wants to get into writing and maybe some animation as well, I really empathize for the people who worked on this, went through the shots, did all of the editing and the CGI work and the writing, and I want to support them, even if I am grossed out and absolutely despise the behavior of the lead actor. I didn't go see this movie to support them. I went and saw this movie to support Andy Muschietti and his team and everyone else that put their heart and soul and blood and sweat into this movie. And so that's why I went to see it, even though I am disgusted by the actions and behavior of the main star. And they are in every single frame of this movie. And so there's no way that they could have taken them out. The movie was already shot and done when all of those horrible things went down. And so you couldn't have reshot the movie and you could not have CGI'd them out. They'd already spent $200 million making it. They had to release it in order to recoup some of their loss. But I believe that it is absolutely insane to think that Ezra Miller will ever play the Flash again. I do not believe that that is possible. If James Gunn hires Ezra Miller to be part of his new DCU, I will lose all faith in their ability to understand the audience and produce good content, because that would be an absolutely insane move. And I do not believe that that will happen. This will be Ezra Miller's last time playing Flash. I am super freaking positive on that. And to corroborate that point, the box office is not looking good either. And so even if somehow they managed to justify casting him again, or the public turned to Ezra's favor, which I do not believe will happen, they could still fire him and replace him based on the grounds that the box office for this movie is not looking good. They spent $200 million on it, and it looks like it's only going to come in with about $60 to $70 million opening weekend. And for a movie that costs $200 million to make, definitely cost over $100 million to market. And when the theaters are taking a third of that, they need to get probably somewhere close to $400 million just to break even, maybe even more. And with June and July being this crowded, we still have Into the Spider-Verse, we still have Oppenheimer coming out and Barbie coming out. Those movies are looking to be really hot. This movie is going to have a tremendous hold, a tremendous second weekend in order to have legs and to recoup its finances, because it's not doing it in the opening weekend. It's not making big enough, and it is possible that The Flash has legs. If there's enough positive word of mouth, enough people like me go and encourage their friends and family to go see it, it is possible. For example, The Little Mermaid, in spite of the fact that Across the Spider-Verse came out the weekend after, it still posted a pretty solid second weekend. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse also posted a pretty solid second weekend. So even though we're in a very crowded movie season right now, it is still theoretically possible for this movie to clear maybe 30 probably not 40 million on its second opening weekend, but that's going to be one heck of an impressive hold, and that'll all be due to raving fans telling everybody to go see it and going and seeing it multiple times for themselves. But this movie is not going to be the flagship that it was supposed to be financially, and I think the ramifications of this is that they're just going to be ignoring all of the potential plot points of this movie going forward. There was a lot of very cool things set up in this film, but because of the box office and the financials, I believe that they're probably just going to ignore it, and they're probably going to start the Flash fresh in the DCU when James Gunn gets around to making that character. I do not see them doing anything with the plot devices in this film going forward. And so that is my opinion of the Flash. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. You can check out some more of my podcast episodes right here. You guys have a wonderful day, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.